Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. Climate change is an existential threat to the Caribbean region, but it can also be an opportunity for the world to maximize the opportunities and innovation in the blue and the green economy. Rebuilding sustainable nations and economies where all stakeholders partner for a better future. Now, we're going in depth on that statement with the originator of it, CEO of Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator and United Nations Global Ambassador for Race to Zero and Race to Resilience, Racquel Moses. Welcome, Racquel. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for making the time. And I also want to say congratulations on the ambassadorship. It's been a while since we've been supposed to be speaking, but I want to start off the conversation asking some of your takeaways from COP26. Thank you.
Certainly. So COP26 was really interesting in that there were some specific deliverables that we were looking forward to that were not met. But what we've seen since, and which is a really exciting, sometimes they say good thing, bad thing, who knows. It's a good thing that we're having the discussion at this time because so much has happened since then. And what we're seeing is a lot of the private sector stepping up. We're seeing a lot of private philanthropy stepping up. For example, the Accelerator is a nominator for the Earthshot Prize, which is Prince William's charity, and it's a £1 million prize for an innovation that can be spread throughout the region. So we are really excited, and we're seeing a lot of examples of these kinds of innovations where private money is coming to help us to develop and to innovate.
And that is something we want to dive into in just a little bit, but when we ask about takeaways from COP26, do those takeaways change when we ask for them from a Caribbean perspective?
So from a Caribbean perspective, and the Accelerator, I mean, it's in our name. Our perspective is uniquely Caribbean. We're seeing a lot of nations step up, and Barbados, for example, they're pledged to be carbon neutral by 2030, and that was something that they have pledged since the Paris Agreement. And they're making significant strides towards it. We're seeing a lot of exciting changes coming out of the OECS and lots of exciting innovations as well. We're seeing a lot, Jamaica is doing a lot in terms of their energy transition, having met their first milestone and continuing to implement. And we're hopeful about Trinidad and Tobago, obviously. This is where I'm from and this is the land that I love. We're hopeful in seeing a lot more energy conservation as well as transitioning to renewables.
When you look at the fact that you have Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, that word accelerate, sometimes it causes some headaches because it can lead to the thought process that, okay, what we can do, we're not necessarily doing it as quickly as we can. I want to get into that aspect of it, but may I have an entire overview of the Accelerator? Thanks.
Certainly. So there are three main pillars, and all of those, the three main things that we do are under a bigger umbrella. The first and foremost thing that we want to do is to create a climate smart map for the region. We want to be able to identify what are the things that need to be done in order to make the Caribbean the world's first climate smart zone. So what kind of investments do we require? Where are the cash flows? What are the protections we need to put in place? What are some of the policies that we need to have? What are the areas that need to be shored up? What kind of infrastructure do we need to have in place? And there are three things that we believe will be significant contributors to the creation of that climate smart zone. The first one is 90% renewable energy for all. So that is transitioning the region to energy independence. The second one is 30 by 30, which is the protection of 30% of our land and our marine resources to make sure that nature has a chance to regenerate itself. And the third one is 1.5% new green jobs, which is to create a resilient green sector so that we are leading the world in innovation and the creation of new intellectual property, but also new green jobs so that we can protect our physical as well as our economic state of being against climate threats.
But when you think of that, what kind of timelines are you looking at? And I ask that question because if you have the result that you want by this time, what are some of the changes that are necessary, even if you think of like transition, energy and independence, people whose jobs will be impacted? What kind of retraining, retooling, what are some of those things that go into determining that timeline?
So we're looking at a timeline of the accelerator itself is meant to spur on this action and to be a catalyst for that action over a period of 5 years. But we are looking to see the changes take place on or before 2030. So moving swiftly towards that 2030 deadline for that limit of 1.5% warming. And what we're hoping, you remember there used to be Blockbuster and now there's Netflix. And what we want is for the Caribbean region, we want the Caribbean region to be the Netflix and not the Blockbuster. We want to be able to be ahead of the curve in terms of the changes that need to take place. So often and very, very infrequently do we get a chance to be ahead of the pack versus following everyone else's lead. This is a chance for us to invest in ourselves as well as to invest in entrepreneurship, to create new opportunities for our people, so that we are leading on the global stage in terms of climate action. And there are many instances where that is already happening. One of only 7 countries in the world that are almost 100% renewable energy is Costa Rica, for example. So we're really excited about our potential to serve as that global example.
And I think we have much less opportunity to be reactive in this situation than times gone by. But in terms of associated duties at COP26 as a global ambassador, what were those like for you?
So for me, it was a lot of media interviews, a lot of working with our regional partners to be able to generate new projects. We had our first investor forum just after COP26, and we were able to introduce 5 investors to $10.5 billion worth of potential projects for investment. And that's the kind of thing that we're doing. We're looking for opportunities to bring new sources of funding to the region to fund the projects. We have no end of investor interest in investment in the blue economy. And so now what we're finding is that there isn't a lot of education about what is the blue economy. And it's anything that is ocean related or relies on the ocean. And that can be anything from sustainable fishing to cooling using ocean to producing energy using the ocean. And we're seeing a lot of investment in that area and a lot of desire to invest in that area. And so we want more Caribbean people to get involved in the blue economy because we see that as a big part of the future.
And how do you marry the data sets with the especially private sector? Because the question of what's in it for me is something that is constantly asked, and understandably so, but combining the information or data impact that may have the potential impact as well as policy moves toward these kind of solutions. How do we work that out?
You know, when you ask about data, I feel like you're looking inside of our private playbook. It is all about the data. The data is going to dictate how we move forward, and we are data rich and data driven in terms of our approach. And when it comes to what we're asking of the private sector, we understand that if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And so all of the things that we are asking, what people are failing to realize, and that is the crux of how we move forward, is this climate emergency is a climate opportunity. There will be trillions of dollars invested in this sector. And unless we are willing to take the chance and be first in a number of areas or to serve as the petri dish for transformation at scale, we will lose this opportunity. And we don't get very many. So we have to capitalize on this opportunity and be willing to create new solutions that can be investment ready.
Well, we come back to this conversation after the break. We're speaking with Racquel Moses, CEO of Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator. Stay with us. Welcome back, where we are going in depth on a conversation about the climate and a climate emergency. We're doing that with CEO of the Caribbean Climate Smart Accelerator, Racquel Moses. And Racquel, you mentioned a climate smart zone a little earlier. What is that?
So a climate smart zone is a place that modernizes infrastructure as well as approaches to tackling this climate crisis. And we want the region to be that zone that is safe, that is resilient, that is free from climate stresses, not only because we have been a part of the mitigation, which is the prevention of the climate emergency, but we're also adapting to the changes that are already taking place. And we want to be the first zone across the globe that is climate safe and climate smart in the way that we approach things.
And sometimes I ask the question, if that is the stated goal, what is the question? But I think we know what the question is. But do we go forward and say everything has to be new for us to deal with this problem? Or do we go backwards and say, okay, well, older generations had an idea of how to deal with things like that. Where do we get it from? Diving into a playbook again, asking about information and data.
Yes, so we're seeing there's a lot of what we're doing that we just need incremental improvement on. Certainly across the region and across the globe, just being more conservation minded in terms of energy, for example, would have huge returns. I'm deeply saddened that Trinidad and Tobago still does not have a ban of plastics and single-use plastics in place, unlike so many other of our Caribbean neighbors. And so there are things that we need to do that are no-brainers, that are easy, that are quick, that we can at least start creating some momentum around making ourselves more climate smart.
And we recently spoke with Alpha Senon from Y Farm, and he said that you cannot speak about agriculture if you don't speak about climate change, if you don't speak about soil. And you've also cited Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica and looked at the role of the private sector in investing in local supply chains. What are some of those conversations that we need to have and then move on from having to get into action?
Well, wonderful. So one of the things that we've done is we've created a financial advisory committee, and that is a committee of regional financial institutions, including institutions here in Trinidad, Ansa Merchant as an example, and a number of others across the region, who are interested in investing in entrepreneurship and investing in climate smart projects. And we want to use that willingness to invest and pair those with projects that are investment ready. Where projects are not investment ready, we want to help get them ready so that they can attract the funding that they need to get up and off the ground. And so we think that those kinds of things, matchmaking funding with entrepreneurs and helping them get ready, is one of the many things that we can do to help accelerate climate action.
And when you say we, you're talking about the Climate Smart Accelerator, right?
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Now, how do individuals engage with it? Is it that they need to be at a certain level and you just take them over the hump? I know you just spoke about helping to facilitate that, but what kind of entry point is needed for the smallest stakeholder?
Sure. I think there are the more ready you are for investment, the more opportunities that we have available. We do have some opportunities that can take care of people who just have an idea, but the further you are in development from the idea stage, the more we are able to help. So, we've partnered with the IDB, for example, on the pivot movement, and prizes were given out last year for innovations and what are called moonshots, which are, world-changing ideas that can lead to new developments. The Earth Shot that we are a nominator for has to be beyond idea stage. All of the investors that we're looking at are looking for development beyond the idea stage. But if what you have is an idea, we may be able to help you, put you in touch with someone who can help you develop that idea. And you can reach us at CaribbeanAccelerator.org. And hopefully we can help you to get from one stage to the other stage. There's the old saying, the journey of 1,000 steps starts with a single step, and that's where we need to go. We don't want to leave anybody behind. We absolutely want to help those that we're best suited to help, but there are organizations that we can pair you with. We are the great connector, so we can connect people with organizations with the ability to help them.
But sometimes it feels as though people, in terms of trying to put one foot in front of the other, they aren't necessarily thinking about moonshots. but what are some of those low-hanging fruits that you think just individuals can work towards to achieve some of these things that we want to see?
So, we're seeing a lot of work in energy transition, whether it is in installing solar or whether it is developing new sources of energy. I've seen some insane innovations. A young woman in the US developed a ball that, in kicking it around, it can generate renewable energy. So we're looking for anything as simple as, how do you green our exports? How do we become more climate smart? Simple changes that need to be made, to absolutely moonshots and new ways of thinking about transportation and hyperloop and everything else. And so everything in between. We want all of those things to take a chance, look at the opportunities for development, and then in that innovation, in that thinking, be able to pair those entrepreneurs with potential solutions. We're also in talks with Planting Seeds as an example, as a partner, because we see them as a key opportunity, again, to pair entrepreneurs with sources of funding and investment.
And do you think sometimes it's that something is lost in the messaging when you look at the difference between Costa Rica, like you said, and Trinidad and Tobago, and the fact that we're still dealing with so many single-use plastics? Is it that we need to look at the threat of businesses moving as opposed to the positives that may come, or the positives that will come from shifting away from some of these hydrocarbons that we're dealing with? What is it in your estimation?
In my estimation, we are operating from a position of fear versus operating from a position of opportunity. If we continue thinking about only what is it that we will lose versus thinking about what is it that we have the potential to gain, we will always be caught on the back foot. Trinidad and Tobago has an opportunity, a unique opportunity, to take a leadership role, not just in the region, but globally in a number of things, in terms of how do you transition a carbon-based economy, a petrochemical-based economy, into a clean and green economy. And we have a unique positioning to do that. Dubai has done it, and we also need to do it. And we can leapfrog what they've done. We see what they've done, and we can leapfrog that. But we have to operate from a position of opportunity and not one of fear.
It seems as though anywhere you pelt a stone, Racquel, it's going to hit a trini. This is any jurisdiction.
Yes.
So it's not as though there are certain gaps in capacity, be it persons or some other resources, but in terms of just saying, okay, well, let's start from home. Let's do it here. Bringing that critical mass together to make those changes. When does this happen? In terms of, especially with the accelerator, in the Climate Smart Accelerator, what are some of those takeaways that you'd want a policymaker to think about in terms of them listening to this conversation?
What I want anyone listening to this conversation is to realize that there is no one who is coming to save us. We all have a part to play. So if you are a policymaker, you need to think about the policies that will protect us and will help us to make the transition that we all know we need to make. If you are an entrepreneur, if you are students in school, you need to research more about what is happening and the transitioning that this globe is going through. Everyone has a part to play. If you have a business, you need to think about, how is the climate going to impact, climate change going to impact my business, and what kinds of changes can I put in place so that I am preemptive versus reactive to the changes that are coming. So I think everyone needs to look at this from their own perspective, get informed, and start taking action.
And in terms of action, I want to commit to us actually engaging with some of the stakeholders that engage with you, Ms. Moses, and continue the conversation. So hopefully it reaches on fertile soil and we can move forward, because it's purely self-interest.
Yeah, our survival.
All right, so we want to thank you so much, CEO of Caribbean Smart or Climate Smart Accelerator, as well as Ambassador, United Nations Global Ambassador for Race to Zero and Race to Resilience, Racquel Moses. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth. Thank you for joining us.